And now we have another speaker. He is amazing. So you're going to want to listen up. The wonderful Deon Clark. Not only is he an entrepreneur, he is also the owner of TCI Solutions, LLC. Give it up for Deon. Woo woo.
All right, thank you, Ms. Charbria. I want to just first give a shout out to Charbria and Lewis for organizing this. For those of you guys who are here, I'm saying this and take it from me. The information that's being shared is critical. When you get into business, a lot of us, we start off, you have a great idea, your heart is into it, it feels like you're gonna make it. And I think the statistics say that majority of businesses fail in the first 7 years. And it's because a lot of the information that you're hearing here, we don't necessarily know that. So please pay attention. For those who are existing businesses and you're doing pretty well, hopefully there's still things you gain. If everything you hear you know already, my recommendation is talk to Charbria and Lewis, and you need to get on the stage and share that information. For those who are aspiring, you need to pay attention. So what I'll do is I'll give you guys a little bit of my background because I think it helps to shape what I'm saying is factual and these things work. So my name is Deon Clark, and I am the owner of TCI Solutions, as well as TCI Express. And my wife and I own about 3 other companies that are, for all intents and purposes, kind of subsidiaries of each other. If you look at this title, this is very specific. It's the value of blank in the language of business. Now, that blank is whatever it is you do. What Bree shared with you guys who are going on the nonprofit side or who have a for-profit, but you're seeking grants, critical information. The path that we took was demanding that you will pay me for what I do, and you will pay me what I'm worth. For me to command that, I had to understand the language of business. I had to be able to take what my thoughts was, my gifts, but how do I transcribe it in a way that the businesses see what I see? The businesses value it. If they don't, they will not pay you. If you do not speak their language, you're dead in the water. You will resort to hoping somebody gives you something. I'm simply saying to you all, you don't have to. Again, if you go the grant route, that's a very specific thing that Bree shared. Some of you guys are for-profits and you're not seeking grants. You have a service or you have a product that you're trying to sell. Someone has to pay for it. You need to understand their language so when you make that pitch, you get what you're asking for. A little bit of my background. When I graduated high school in '97, I went straight to the Navy. Now, I was blessed. I'm a nerd. Proudly say it. I scored high enough somehow on the military entrance exams. They put me in the Navy's nuclear program. At age 18, they taught me how to split atoms. And it sounds weird, but you are looking at someone who can split atoms. I went through the military, I got additional training, and I am the 48th African-American in American history who holds a senior nuclear reactor operator's license. I train people to operate nuclear reactors. That's what I do as a trade. Now, the issue was when I was doing that, I was the only person, this is in Chicago, the only person that looked like me, and I was the youngest by 10 years. I was 26 when I got into the commercial nuclear industry. That was an issue for me because my concern was there are too many young people in Chicago who are way more intelligent than me who can do this work, yet they're nowhere to be found, meaning we never reached out to them. The industry did not have a pathway on how do you reach out. They didn't even go to certain communities to inform us that these opportunities were there. There was also an assumption that in certain communities, you're not going to get that type of talent. And I see a whole slew of young people right here. There are a lot of people who will assume what you can and cannot do. There was an assumption made on me that I was not going to pass certain exams. When they gave me those tests, for me, it was a joke. But they wouldn't know that because people make their assumptions. The beginning of my business venture was, how can I convince major utility companies to go into these low-income communities and actually recruit the talent, not for a corporate citizenship, not for a pat on the back, not for a photo op. Go in there, train, and hire. There are 1 million nonprofits that do that work. But for some reason, the utilities were still not hiring. My assessment was the work that was being done, it did not meet the standard that the nuclear industry had. That was my opportunity. So I want to bring you guys forward. My wife and I, we started the business, and we started off as a nonprofit. And this is important because I'll kind of walk you guys through these evolutions. We started as a nonprofit, but we realized for what we were doing, we had to switch to a for-profit model. And we had to understand exactly what it is we were selling in order to make the case to get the type of money that we were earning. So we started off with the first check we had was $10,000. It's the greatest day of my life. The last contract we closed a few years ago was $1 million. None of it's grant money. That million that comes to me, if I choose to go buy a Ferrari with it, it's my money. What I want to share with you guys is the process and some key things so that if you're selling a product or a service and you're not in the process of the grant, that's not your lane, how do you go about doing that so that you actually get what it is that you're worth? Is everybody with me on this? Now, you notice my title is The Value of People in the Language of Business. One of the most difficult things to do was to get someone to pay us to train young people, because all they would do is say, the United Way does that. The Urban League does that already. A bunch of nonprofits do that. Why would we pay you for a service that someone else would do for us for free? And that was an exceptionally hard case for us to make. So I want to take you guys through a journey of some basic things. Bree, you're going to notice that we're going to be, some of the things you shared, I'm going to share those same things because we're on that same pathway. 3 major things I want you guys to take away from this. One is understanding the considerations for how you set your business up, the structure. Most of us think that we got a great thing, we want to help people, and we immediately move to the nonprofit sector. And most people could not tell you the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit. Bree gave you guys a real key element of it. There is but one fundamental difference. As a nonprofit, you simply cannot take earnings and give them out as dividends. It has to stay within that organization. Outside of that, you all, there is no difference. Some people will look and say, well, if I'm a CEO of a nonprofit, I'm not supposed to make a lot of money. It's a mental thing. If you look at the IRS's information on what is reasonable compensation for a nonprofit executive, they are very clear when they say similarly situated business shall pay similarly. If a CEO of a for-profit is similar to your organization and they make $3 million a year, so should you. And I guarantee you it will not trigger an audit. It's because it's a business. Just because it says nonprofit, it does not mean you don't make a profit. If you don't make a profit, you will go out of business. If you have a nonprofit, you better connect with Bree because them grants are a lifeline. So we talk about business structure. The second thing I want you guys to walk away with is the importance of professional services. I'll share my own personal catastrophe when good old Uncle Sam audited my taxes that I was doing by myself trying to save a buck or two. It's a bad day. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And the last thing is just understanding the language of business. And I cannot stress this enough, you all. You have to understand, how do companies interpret money? How do they see it? They don't look at it as you do X, Y, and Z. That's not how that's not their language. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Everybody still with me? Business structure is important. You all have to figure out, based on what it is you're doing, what is the appropriate structure for you. Do not just wake up and say, I'm going to create an LLC. There's multiple elements of LLCs. Bree even mentioned earlier that you can be a for-profit and still get grants. There's a new form called an L3C, which is a low-profit limited liability company, meaning you can get all the grants, yet still be a nonprofit. There are sole proprietorships. There are corporations, S corporations, C corporations, and yes, a nonprofit falls under the corporation designation. You have to know which is which. Now, I want to share a few key things why it's important for you guys to think about this, get legal advice if you need it. Let me throw a question to you guys. Anybody tell me why so many people do an LLC and not just operate their business as a sole proprietor? What's the number one reason most people actually incorporate themselves as a business? Can anybody tell me? Not you. Somebody yelled it out. You said protections? The young lady in the back said protections. She stole your opportunity, man. I'll get you next. Protection, let me explain that. If you are a sole proprietor, while you do have a business, the IRS considers you what they call a disregarded entity. There is no separation between you and your business. It's the same. If you were to get sued, they can go after your personal assets. So if you have a nice home that you've worked your life to build, you have some vehicles, personal assets, and you get sued as a sole proprietor, if they're successful in their lawsuit, they can go after what you have personally. That's a bad place to be. An LLC, if you set it up correctly, it separates you from your business. All that means is if you were held liable, they can only go after the assets of the business. So if you have $1 million home, and I'm a car guy, so I always reference cars, and you have a bunch of nice cars, and somebody sues you, and your business has $25 in the bank, guess what they can get maximum in that lawsuit? $25. They cannot touch your $1 million home because you have separated you from your business. Bree mentioned earlier about commingling funds. That is the only way they will get you. They call that piercing the corporate veil. It's when you demonstrate that you really haven't separated your business from yourself, those protections go away. But if you manage your accounts right, you separate the monies, you actually operate your business as a business, you have protections. Young people, this is important. Many young people create designs. You guys have different trademarks. You have them, but you don't know you have them because you haven't filed for it. But you do. You have creative things. You need to be able to protect that stuff and own it so that if somebody comes after you, they can never take what you created. LLCs, corporations, these things protect you all. So you have to know what type of business you want to set up. Beyond the protections, how you are taxed is the other way people make that decision. If you're an LLC, which the vast majority of small businesses are, you have the option to be taxed as an S corp. In other words, you can run your taxes through your personal. All that means is if you made $100,000, but your business lost $100,000, you can run that through, and at the end of the year, the IRS believes that you didn't make a penny. You probably won't owe any taxes. They'll probably owe you. So you can run the business profits or losses through your personal. It's a Form 1040 Schedule K that we put them on. That is important. Another day, maybe somebody later today will talk more about taxes, but I promise you, that is the key way you lower your taxes. It's you run the business losses through your personal. 9 chances out of 10, you will probably get money back from the IRS while operating your business. So again, know the protections, understand how you intend to be taxed. That's gonna go into how do you form your business. So the structure is very, very important. I am telling you guys now, do your best to move away from the sole proprietorship model. It just doesn't give you enough protection. There's a lot of risk with it. Some do it because they start off in their home. But I'm encouraging you guys to truly look at other business models that give you the protections that you need. Everybody good with me on that? Very, very key. Now, professional services. There was mentioned a little earlier, when you first start off, it is difficult because our money is very tight. What I can tell you all is, do not take shortcuts here. I want to give you all an example of why I got audited by the IRS. Raise your hand if you believe, as a business owner, you can buy professional clothes for your business, for you to go do meetings and whatnot, and write that off on your taxes as an expense. I got one hand. I got more hands. I'm putting my hand up because I was 100% certain. And you can. But there's a caveat. Accountants know this, but Deon Clark, the guy that does nuclear operations, did not know. When they audited me and I asked them, why am I being audited? What flagged? 2 things flagged. The amount of trips that I was taking, I had a multitude of meetings that I was doing. And the amount I spent on, damn it, suits. You gotta look right. If you're going after $1 million or something, you can't come in there with jeans on and a wrinkled shirt saying, I got this service for you. So when the young lady that was helping me through the audit asked me a couple questions. She said, the suits you bought, she said, were they for business purposes? I said, absolutely. Said, did you have the potential to wear them other places? So what do you mean? Said, could you theoretically go somewhere else with that suit on? I said, well, yeah. It's not eligible. I said, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean? What she was getting at was a business uniform has a business logo or something on it. It's specific to the business. This suit right here, I would have a hard time justifying to the IRS that that's a legitimate business expense. It has nothing to do with my company other than I wear it for certain things. I had no idea, you all. No idea. The travel expenses. I was certain that because I'm traveling for business, I can write it off. She pulled out a random date, a random receipt and said, who did you meet on this date? I got audited in 2016 for 2013 taxes. That was 3 years ago, man. I don't remember. Then it's not valid. So what are you talking about? If you can't pinpoint who you met with, the purpose of the meeting, and have that documented, you're subject to be audited. And if you do get audited and you can't produce that, that's no longer a valid expense. I owed the IRS $50,000 back from 2014 and 2015 taxes. $50,000 I had to give back because I had no idea. I just didn't document things the right way. Now, who do you believe I could have had at my corner that would have told me that? A CPA. Oh my goodness. Had I enlisted a CPA, now mind you, the CPA is not expensive if all I'm doing is saying, hey, I want to run a few questions past you. They may bill you for 30 minutes of their time, possibly. It may have cost me $30, $40, $50 and would have saved me $50,000. My point is this. What seems to potentially be a savings on the front end, based on your business model, based on the type of money you're moving, it may not be. I strongly encourage you all, as you're developing your business and you're thinking about really taking off with this thing, you need to understand what professional services you need for your business. What I've listed here are just a few of those things. A CPA or an accountant, sometimes you don't need a CPA for certain things. A human resource professional. Anybody know why having a human resource professional somewhere connected to you is important? Anyone? Why is that so important? All right, I'm back to you now, boss. So what he mentioned, for those that can't hear, is pay structure and how you're paying your employees. Trust me, if you're an employee and your employer messes up your pay, then you understand how important this is. That's the quickest way to get a lawsuit. Quickest way to get a lawsuit is you're doing something you don't realize. If you have an employee and that employee comes to you and say, hey man, listen, the trucks that we drive, the steering wheel is too far back and it doesn't have that automatic adjustment where you can move the steering wheel closer. And they simply tell you, I would like you to just buy me like a nice little pillow that pushes me forward. I found one on Amazon for $75. And you say, I'm not doing that. Does anybody know the technical term of what that employee asked you for? What it legally is called? A reasonable accommodation. All they asked you for was a mechanism to help them do their job. Legally, you are obligated to give them that. Whether you like it or you might not like this person at all and be like, I'm not giving you nothing. I can guarantee that's a lawsuit waiting for you because it was a reasonable accommodation. If you've never heard of that term, more reason why you need to make sure you have an HR professional somewhere in your orbit, because there are mistakes that get made that we think is not a big deal. But I'm telling you now, employees and customers, they know that law. And they wait very patiently for you to make the first mistake, and they will sue you. I am in the process of 3 lawsuits right now, active. I go home, me and my wife, we talk about it maybe once every month or so, and I smile. Anybody know why I smile at lawsuits? I don't even deal with them. I don't deal with them. When I tell you all my paperwork is in order, everything is in order. When somebody files something, I don't deal with it because I already have the proper insurance. I have workers' compensation. I have what you call employment practices liability insurance. It's nothing for me to do but receive the notification, send it to the team, and I go back and sit down and have my cup of coffee. And I wait for them to tell me we settled it. It means nothing to me. Here's why I'm saying that. For those who are already in small business, it is stressful enough just doing what we do. When you start adding legal complications. You start concerned about an employee that's suing you. Somebody stole your trademark, your patent. The day becomes extremely difficult. I'm telling you guys this because 9 chances out of 10, when we start up, we do not do this. It's in an effort to save money. It's only years later you realize the amount of money you actually lost trying to save a couple of dollars. So what I'm encouraging you all is, based on the business structure you're setting up, take the time to determine, do you need any of these services? The answer is gonna be yes at some point, but you need to be aware of what stage are you in and what might you actually need access to. Does this make sense to everybody? Yep, you're shaking your head. Let me ask it again, because I know there's somebody out here right now that's thinking about, man, I just did my I used TurboTax, free edition. I just did my taxes. Does everybody understand the importance of this? Please let this soak in. And if you've already made mistakes, be proactive and take a second look at what you've done. You can always have an accountant literally go in, make the corrections, refile it, all is well. All is well. There is not even a time limit with the IRS. You can make a correction for 4 years ago. The good thing is just take the time to make sure you did things the right way. I have a cousin, I'm not gonna mention his name. I will tell you this. He was on the New England Patriots when they won the Super Bowl. Number 99. I'm not gonna say his name though. Him and I talked, and we had a long conversation. He got it for free somehow. He came to my house and soaked up all my information, but turns out he was one of those folks that had to go back, get an account, take a look at the taxes. Take a second look. Because after we talked, he believed strongly there probably were mistakes made that he just didn't think of. Now, you can imagine, Super Bowl champ for the Patriots, we're not talking 30, 40,000. It can be catastrophic if he made mistakes and they come after his money. Don't think that because you're small, it doesn't have the same impact. It's all relative. If all I make is 30,000 a year, $5,000 is catastrophic to me. So it's relative to where you're at. Anybody got any general questions on this before I move on? If you got some, when we get to Q&A, please ask it. Absolutely critical that you guys think of this. Everybody know who this gentleman is on the screen? I think he stole this from me. I'm not sure. Accounting is the language of business. Accounting, or understanding a business's finances. I do not care how great you think your product or service is. The person who you're trying to get to give over their hard-earned money to you, in exchange for that, they have to believe it. They have to value what you do. And if you don't know how to correlate what you do into that language, it'll be extremely hard for you to get what you're worth. I'm gonna give you guys a story here. And I share some of my follies because I just wish that I knew more then than I know now. We started our business in 2008. And we started as a nonprofit. I'll get into that in a little bit. We ended up converting to a for-profit. But in any event, we did the business plan, had our financial projections. It was a very well laid out business plan. We were rejected by 12 banks for the funding. 12. It was the last bank, which is the Bank of Oswego, was the last one we went to. Now, we got rejected by them too, but their vice president was courteous enough to sit down, and we asked him, tell me why you rejected us. The man said, you all have the best business plan that I've seen from a startup in a long time. Your financials look good. He said, the reason why we rejected you is you did not ask for enough money. We asked for $250,000, and we knew we needed $1 million. Our assumption was they're not gonna give no $1 million to these 2 young brothers from Chicago. They're not gonna do it. So go low, get something, and let's see what happens. That's the way we were thinking. When that man said, the reason we won't give you the money is because you did not ask for enough money. He then said, your business plan is brilliant. We know your model is good, but you will not make it to your break-even point with $250,000, meaning you'll go out of business, we'll never get our money back. For that reason, I sound like a Shark Tank. And for that reason, I'm out. They were out. Ladies and gentlemen, it fundamentally shifted every single thing about the way I do business. I'm gonna fast forward you briefly and bring you back. My wife and I, through the businesses we own, have had as many as 6 people up to 155 employees. A few years ago, we were probably I think we were doing about $3 million a year. I'm giving you guys this because I'm telling you now, and that's with minimum effort. That's after we made a conscious decision to focus on our health. There's other things we need to do. The amount of money that is there to be made, I promise you guys, the money is there. The money is there. When I fast forward, the work we did in Minnesota, one of the companies that we contracted with was Thomson Reuters. Now, most of our contracts are with utilities, so Exelon, Nicor, and we do it in about 6 different states. Thomson Reuters is a global Fortune 200 company, if I'm not mistaken. Their chief information officer, Rick King, him and I sat down. I was doing work for another corporation that he happened to be on the board of. And he said, young man, can you do for my company what you're doing for this one? My default answer is absolutely. I don't know what he's gonna ask me, but the answer is yes. A week later, we had a meeting. I had to present our legacy program. It was him, all the executives. About 8 of them in the room. Now, hear me clearly. A few years back, we asked for $250,000, even though we knew we needed more. I did the presentation. At the end, one of the VPs like, how much is this gonna cost us? I want y'all to hear me clearly when I tell you, I didn't have an itch in my throat. There was no sweat on the brow, $1 million. They said, okay, we'll follow up. The only thing I got you all was the next morning, I got an email saying, great presentation, do you accept credit? That was the first $1 million contract we got. First $1 million contract. And it was fundamentally, I understood what is the value of what I'm bringing to them. Thomson Reuters makes probably $80 billion a year. My little $1 million, it's not even a percentage. They know that. What I'm sharing with you all, and this is really at the crux of my presentation, is for what you do, and it's different for every single person, all my vendors that are here, every one of you have something slightly unique. Most of the vendors in the room, you all sell a product. There are some that have a service. Those are your 2 biggest things. Either you provide a service or you provide a product. And you think your thing is the greatest thing on earth. And it probably is. The challenge is, can you get me to think that? If I speak Spanish and you presenting in English, you have no business deal. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're not speaking my language. If you come to me, now Bree, this is where I have to make this delineation here, you guys, because I'm not talking about nonprofit or grant. It's very important. If you go that route, you have to do the things Bree was saying. What I'm talking about is those of you who are knocking on the door of a person or a company saying, I have a service or product, and you're trying to sell it to them. This is what I'm talking about. You better understand their language, because you have to now make what we call a value proposition. What is it that I am bringing, and why would it bring value to them? This goes way beyond you thinking what you have is great. You have to demonstrate that, because we know it is great. But until you make the case, who you're trying to get money from may not agree yet. The language of business is through either their income statement, some people call it a P&L, a profit and loss. If you cannot show what you do, how it affects their profit and loss statement, you are dead in the water. In other words, you're making it too difficult for them to figure out, is this something good or not? Because I'm telling you, they have to go and get approval from some boss. And I promise you, their supervisor is going to say, show me where this saves us money, time, resources. It has to impact them in some form or fashion. The key for you all is, do you know enough from your potential client to understand what are their triggers? What is it that they do? How do they earn their money? Because if you know that, You can tailor what you do to specifically show how your product or service ties into what they care about. Let's take you through again what we had to do. I talked earlier about how we were initially a nonprofit because I had the perception that we're working with young people. Our core business, we were over in 39th and Giles, Wendell Phillips High School, 500 North Waller, Douglas Academy. We were over in Woodlawn, Olive Harvey, Middle College, Roseland. In other words, we intentionally went to where we knew the most challenged group of kids were, and our goal was we're gonna turn them into nuclear engineers. Yeah, right. No, that was the goal. And here's what I know. I am the guy that's licensed to, the people that's operating the nuke right now, there's a certain percentage of them, my name is on their license. It's on there. I certified them, meaning if I can certify them, why can't I certify every young person right here? I can certify any of you guys. And if you operate a nuke, you'll make $200,000 a year on the low end, no overtime. So I know personally, if I can get the young people to me, I can train them to the level that I train those people to. That's what I do. The trick was, will the company look past who these young people are? Can the company look past the fact that they may be from Roseland? Can the company look past that? That was the biggest hiccup. Yes, there are a million nonprofits that work with youth. I looked to see, is there a single nonprofit that works with youth that had pipeline just one of their clients into the nuclear plant? The answer is no. The reason is this. Now, I'm giving you guys the research I had to do. The reason is that there is a general perception that if a person is going through a workforce development program, it's for an entry-level position. That's a perception. If I'm trying to hire somebody to operate a nuclear reactor, the first place I think of is not the United Way. There's no justification for that, but it's just not. The company doesn't go to the Urban League. They do now. Urban League has made a lot of advancements toward these specific careers. There was a time where they didn't go there, only because they assumed that talent wasn't coming there. This was forming the bedrock of my business. What I looked at was these companies don't know how to get young people in. They don't know how to train them. The nonprofits around me aren't even interested in that because it takes too much time. Most nonprofits operate on a fiscal year, and it's typically like June to June, and they have to either expend the money that they get or they need to show some type of results in order to keep the funding coming. A 2-3 year training program doesn't work. Well, we came in, we're not a nonprofit anymore. We no longer operate under those constraints. We no longer get grants, meaning we do it the way we do it, and there's absolutely nobody that can influence that. Because I had that autonomy, I built the same training program that I built for them, I built it for myself. And we were now bringing people through. The value proposition we made, and the reason why when I tell you guys, the money is there. No matter what a company try to say, the money is there. I understood where we were hurting. I was on the inside. Lewis is giving me the look. I'm gonna violate this, Lewis. I'm gonna go over this a couple minutes. I'm telling you, I'm gonna violate it, I know it. I was on the inside. I knew how much we spent on recruitment. I understood where we were struggling, meaning I had the information necessary to say what I do, turn it into how what I'm going to do for them will improve these very specific things. If you notice, everything on there can be tracked back to their profit and loss statement. Some things you guys may not be familiar with because if you're not in the industry, some of this doesn't make sense. But in the industry, every one of these things is a direct hit on that bottom line. And I know that. So when I presented to them everything I said about the work we were doing, I showed them exactly how it was going to impact those things. That is the reason why, even though the Urban League, the United Way, a multitude of nonprofits were doing the same work, they still put $1 million to me to do the same thing. The difference was I was able to show them definitively the value proposition I added. This is critical, you all. You have to be able to show the value of what you do. Do not go in and just say because you have something great, everybody should think so, because we all feel that way. It is very difficult to convince people to spend their money on you. The way you make it easier, understand what is their bottom line. Now, they're not going to give you their P&L statement. Good luck with that. You don't need the actual P&L statement. Most companies have an online presence. You can get their tax returns, especially if it's a nonprofit, any type of state agency. You can get all the information. Just do your basic research. Most companies put out what their key objectives are and talk about their pain points. They will give you all the information you need if you seek it. Tailor your presentation to that. I'm telling you, they will perk up. Very few people ever come to them and make a business case. Most people come and say, this is what I do. I have something great. Can you support me? They will move you over to the foundation. And you might get funding. You'll get funding through their foundation. To date, we have never seen a single grant. Since 2008, not one grant has ever come through, not one. Every dollar we've ever gotten was 100% out of what I call O&M fund. That's their operations and management budget. That's where the big money is. 100% unrestricted, no restrictions to it. It comes to me, I do what I choose to do with it. The only reason I was able to do it successfully was I understood their language. Does everybody follow me on this? Because Lewis he's harassing me over there. I'm saying this, understand the language, you guys. I promise you, money that you didn't think you can get, companies that you may have assumed they won't give me anything, yes, they will. Because if you have a product or service that's needed, that means someone does need it. They just need you to show them because they have to go to somebody else to get it approved. They have to have a case. They're not going to make the case for you. Give them the case, they will give you the funding. My time is like way up. But any general questions here? I got time for one question. I appreciate you guys. Listen, hopefully you guys locked in and take some away from that. I'm turning it back over to Mr. Lewis here. I don't want no trouble, Lewis. Okay.
Hit that clicker and go back to that last.
Yeah. Oh, we get a photo. Yeah, we get a photo. Who's taking the picture?
All right, so why don't you clap your hands for Deon? I got something to give you. All right. Yeah. So on the behalf of our partner, Chicagoland Popcorn, we want to present this little gift to you. So when you go to movie night, at the house, you can nibble a little bit on some Chicagoland popcorn. So clap your hands for Deon again.
Appreciate it, man.